Every WrestleMania main event explained in order. My name's Jack the Jobber, let's just get straight on with it. WrestleMania 1. Fueled by celebrity involvement, WrestleMania 1 features appearances by Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, Liberace, and so on. It's a sign of the WWF's booming popularity and growing ties to pop culture as a whole, the rock and wrestling connection. The main event is no exception to this trend, with the promotion's biggest star, Hulk Hogan, teaming with household name Mr. T to take on the heel team of Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. And although there was no real precedent to follow at the time, this being WrestleMania 1, it's quite an unusual main event to look back on. A tag team match rather than a singles contest, and Hogan's WWF Championship wasn't even on the line. The match is a loose affair, and wouldn't be anything particularly special were it not for the star power involved and the molten hot crowd. It also features involvement from either team's ringside accomplice, Jimmy Snuka for the faces and Cowboy Bob Orton for the heels. In fact, it's Orton who unwittingly turns the tide for Hogan and Mr. T, accidentally hitting his own man Orndorff and allowing Hulk Hogan to make the pinfall. WrestleMania 2. With Mania 2's unique three-venue setup, it could be argued that the card features a trio of main events, with Mr. T returning to win a quite unusual worked boxing match against Piper in New York, and the British Bulldogs capturing the tag team titles in Chicago, or in Rosemont, Illinois, if we're being precise. But really, the true main event and the final match of the day is in Los Angeles, Hulk Hogan defending his title against the hulking King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. The match is set up in pretty conventional fashion, with Bundy attacking and squashing the ribs of the champion a month prior. And the bout itself follows quite a conventional pattern as well, with Hogan making a heroic comeback to get the better of Bundy, escaping the cage and retaining the title, and even gaining a measure of revenge on the challenger's Weasley heel manager Bobby Heenan in the aftermath. WrestleMania 3. This is arguably still the most iconic WrestleMania main event of all time, with Hogan once again defending the title, this time against an even more physically intimidating foe, the legendary Andre the Giant. Now, an important aspect of this storyline is that Andre and Hogan were recently friends, only for the Giant to turn heel, motivated by his jealousy over Hogan's popularity, and also by a desire to win the WWF Championship, of course. The finishing stretch of the bout features one of the most legendary visuals in wrestling history, with Hogan scooping up the much larger Andre and hitting a big body slam to send the Silverdome crowd into raptures. Hogan finishes things off with his signature leg drop, retains the title, and therefore wins one of the most famous wrestling matches in history. WrestleMania 4. Buckle up, everybody, because it's time for the first WrestleMania main event not to feature Hulk Hogan. It's also the first one where the closing match wasn't actually known to the fans heading in, instead set to be the final of a one-night tournament for the vacant WWF title. And the two favourites of the tournament have to be the previous year's main eventers, Hogan and Andre, but they get each other disqualified earlier in the bracket, so it all comes down instead to Hogan's fellow babyface, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the villainous $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. With an easier path through the tournament bracket, Ted is the fresher man and also benefits from the interference of his accomplice Andre the Giant on the outside of the ring, so Savage sends his valet Miss Elizabeth to fetch Hogan from the back and even the odds. And Hogan does so, countering the cheating of the heels with a chair shot to DiBiase unseen by the referee, which allows Savage to hit his top rope elbow drop and win the title. The faces all celebrate together as Hogan does his very best to tell everybody that this is Randy's moment, while staying very much in the limelight himself as well. Thanks, Hogan. Nice one, man. WrestleMania 5. The mega powers explode. Yes, between Manias 4 and 5, Hogan and Savage's alliance crumbles over the latter's extreme jealousy, believing Hogan's friendship with Miss Elizabeth to carry romantic undertones. And yes, it's pure soap opera stuff, especially when Savage finally snaps and attacks Hogan backstage after a tag team match, leading to a big-time main event at WrestleMania 5. With the title on the line and Hogan in the unfamiliar role of the challenger this time, Elizabeth decides to remain neutral at ringside, but she is used by the wily Savage, who hides behind her at one stage, playing upon her sympathetic nature. Elizabeth is eventually sent to the back by the referee and Savage has the match won, hitting his elbow drop, but Hulk Hogan kicks out of the pinfall attempt and springs to life, running through his finishing sequence and winning the title back with a leg drop. WrestleMania 6. After dominating most of the 80s as the top star in the WWF, Hogan finally meets his match in the form of a man fancied by those behind the scenes as the next big thing, the Ultimate Warrior. Despite being lower down on the card, Warrior is built up to Hogan's level, winning feuds against the likes of Rick Rude and Andre the Giant and becoming IC champion. The two mega babyfaces clash briefly in the 1990 Royal Rumble match, which really brings the crowd to its feet in anticipation of an eventual showdown. And that showdown comes at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, with IC champion Warrior taking on WWF champion Hogan in a winner-take-all match for both titles. And it's Warrior who comes out on top, avoiding the leg drop to hit his own signature move, a big running splash on Hogan, who can only kick out just after the count of 3. Hogan sportingly congratulates his opponent and departs the scene all sad. Could this be the last we'll ever see of the Hulkster on top of WrestleMania? WrestleMania 7. Yeah, Hogan's back. So the Warrior as top star experiment didn't really work, so now Hogan finds himself once again challenging for the WWF title, this time against the man who won the belt from Warrior, former military patriot turned evil defector, Sergeant Slaughter. In the most overtly patriotic WrestleMania main event of all time, taking place around the time of the Gulf War as well, Hogan takes on Iraqi sympathizer Slaughter and is at one stage covered by the Iraq flag before a pinfall attempt is made. Predictably, Hogan kicks out and actually goes on to tear up the flag, defeating Slaughter with the power of both Hulkamania and America combined, an unstoppable duo. WrestleMania 8. For the first time since WrestleMania 1, the main event doesn't feature the WWF Championship on the line, as Hogan takes on the imposing Sid Justice after basically costing Sid the '92 Royal Rumble match from the outside, allowing Ric Flair to take the win and the vacant title in the process. So the main event of Mania should be Hogan versus Flair, right? Well, that is what the original plan seemed to be. Flair had recently joined the company from rivals WCW and was a major and talented name. But Flair instead ends up defending the belt against Randy Savage on the undercard, so Hogan is left to deal with Sid in the final match of the night. And debate still rages over the reason why Hogan versus Flair, bit of a dream match, never took place at WrestleMania. And unfortunately, the finish of the actual main event is horribly botched. The original plan calls for Hogan to hit the leg drop, only for his pinfall attempt to be broken up by interfering spooky heel Papa Shango. The match would therefore end in a DQ, and the heels would beat Hogan down together until he'd be saved by the returning Ultimate Warrior, who'd been suspended in real life after messy contract negotiations, but this was going to be his big grand comeback. Instead, however, the cue for Shango's run-in is horrendously late, meaning that Sid is actually forced to kick out of Hogan's finisher. Sid's manager, the very quick-thinking Harvey Whippleman, improvises an interference to give a reason for the DQ anyway, and Shango finally makes it to the ring for the beatdown before Warrior's climactic return puts the cap on, honestly, an incredibly messy finish to WrestleMania. WrestleMania 9! One disastrous main event is followed by another the following year, as Bret Hart, leader of the next generation of main event stars, defends the WWF title against unstoppable heel sumo wrestler Yokozuna. And it very much seems as though Bret is being set up to retain the belt in hard-fought fashion, but in an apparent last-minute change of plan, he actually loses the belt to Yokozuna after interference from heel manager Mr. Fuji, and then Hulk Hogan runs out and disputes the decision. Against all logic, Fuji then challenges Hogan to take on Yokozuna for the belt right now, an impromptu extra match on the night. Hogan accepts and beats Yokozuna in about 20 seconds to win the title and send the fans home happy. Now, this is generally considered to be a disastrous booking decision, with the WWF taking a huge step back in putting the title back on Hogan rather than attempting to move with the times. And indeed, the Hulkster would be gone from the company anyway before the end of the year, and would sign with WCW the following summer. Embarrassing indeed. WrestleMania 10. Bret Hart gets his shot at redemption the following year with a rematch against Yokozuna, who is by now champion once again. It's quite a convoluted path to the title match though, with both Bret and Lex Luger eliminating each other simultaneously from the Royal Rumble in January, thereby both having a claim to a title shot at Mania. The problem is solved as both men get a match against Yokozuna on the night. Lex gets the first attempt but loses via DQ. And to keep things fair, Bret also has to wrestle an extra match on the night against his heel younger brother, Owen Hart. Owen shockingly wins a classic, casting doubt upon Bret's chances in the main event, which also happens to feature Roddy Piper as special guest referee. Fortunately for Bret, however, despite losing earlier on in the night, he happens to be the best there ever was, and is therefore able to overcome the champion, although I have to admit, the finish is a little bit stupid. Yokozuna perches on the middle rope, setting up for his banzai drop finisher, only to lose his balance and fall to the mat, stunning himself and allowing Bret to scoot on top for the quick pinfall. Oh well, at least they booked the right winner this time. WrestleMania 11. Not since Mania 1 have we seen a main event so centered around celebrity involvement, with legendary New York Giants linebacker Lawrence Taylor competing in a singles match despite having no prior wrestling experience. This pushes the WWF title match between Diesel and Shawn Michaels onto the undercard, despite that bout also having celebrity involvement of its own, namely Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy. Lawrence Taylor's opponent is the well-travelled heel Bam Bam Bigelow, and the feud begins with a confrontation at the Royal Rumble, which involves Bam Bam arguing with LT in the crowd and shoving him to the ground. Although carried through the match by Bam Bam, who receives major credit for doing so, Taylor gives a surprisingly competent performance for somebody with 0 previous matches under their belt. And of course, the celebrity babyface comes away with the win, pinning Bam Bam after a leaping forearm from the middle rope. Honestly, it could have been a lot worse. WrestleMania 12. From a mainstream courting celebrity main event to one for the purists the following year. Perhaps too much for the purists, in fact. You be the judge. In one of the most divisive Mania main events ever, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels do battle in a 1-hour Iron Man match. Of course, the pair are elite level workers, but this is still an incredibly risky stipulation to base the biggest show of the year around. Even crazier, despite it being fought under Iron Man rules, the pair go the entire hour without either gaining a fall over the other, with the clock expiring with Michaels caught in Bret's sharpshooter submission but unwilling to submit. This forces a period of sudden death overtime in which Michaels is able to finally pick up the win with Sweet Chin Music, earning his first WWF Championship in the process, a match totaling almost 62 minutes. WrestleMania 13. Sid's back in the company and back in the WrestleMania main event, no longer as Sid Justice though, now he's known as Psycho Sid. His opponent is The Undertaker, but we'll get to that in a second because honestly, the most interesting thing about WrestleMania 13's main event is what the match isn't, rather than what it, is. WWF champion Shawn Michaels controversially vacates the title in February 97, citing a knee injury and having, quote, lost his smile. He'll be back after Mania though, sparking rumours that persist to this day that he wasn't really injured and was just trying to get out of dropping the belt to one of his peers on the roster, possibly Bret Hart. A rather messy chain of events sees a feud play out between various different wrestlers, Bret, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and eventual main eventers Sid and Taker. Sid becomes the first ever person to win the title on an episode of Monday Night Raw and carries it into Mania, where he's defeated by The Undertaker in routine, rather plodding fashion, and benefits as well from the interference of Bret in the match. But as you can tell, I'm kind of struggling to think of more to say about it. Sadly, this match is mostly remembered for being totally overshadowed by the undercard match between Austin and Bret. It's the scene of the famous double turn, the birth of babyface Steve Austin, and one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. Just not the main event. WrestleMania 14. 1 year on, and suddenly Steve Austin is the hottest star in all of wrestling, and possibly the man to turn the tide in the Monday Night Wars, which have recently seen the Fed getting its ass kicked, honestly, by WCW and the New World Order. But Austin is electric, and his rebellious everyman ways earn the ire of evil boss Vince McMahon. Austin wins the 98 Royal Rumble and heads into what will surely be a torch-passing main event at WrestleMania. But who is his opponent? No, it's not old foe Bret Hart, who's now out of the company in explosive fashion following the infamous Montreal Screwjob. No, instead the champion is Shawn Michaels again, but now he's ravaged by injuries and set for an early retirement. Now, because of all these circumstances, a title change seems pretty certain, but HBK has the baddest man on the planet in his corner, Iron Mike Tyson. But thankfully for Austin, and for the fate of the WWF on the whole, Tyson turns face in the process, counting Austin's pinfall, clocking Michaels after the bell, and cementing Stone Cold as the face of a generation. WrestleMania 15. With the acrimony between Austin and Vince now a full-blown war on our screens, Stone Cold is screwed out of the title over the course of 1998, and the belt ends up in the hands of Vince McMahon's hand-picked corporate champion, The Rock. While The Rock trades the belt back and forth with former Vince stooge turned good guy Mankind, Austin feuds with Vince himself and unthinkably loses the Royal Rumble to the Boss in the final two, with The Rock's help of course. Vince doesn't eliminate Austin clean, God no. Stone Cold, though, ultimately gets his title shot with the help of his opponent in the previous year's main event, Shawn Michaels, who by now is the on-screen commissioner. Austin beats Vince in a cage match to solidify his claim and then heads on to face The Rock at WrestleMania, and it's a chaotic match, absolutely full of ref bumps. Honestly, these officials are not safe in the main event of Mania 15. This chaos allows Vince to interfere, but he's foiled by Mankind, and then Austin is able to beat Rock and finally win back the gold. WrestleMania 16, or WrestleMania 2000 if you prefer. Ah yes, the infamous McMahon in every corner main event. With Austin taking time off to recover from neck surgery, an absence explained on screen as due to being hit by a car, the first main event of the 21st century takes quite an unexpected form. A four-way match. In the bout, we have champion Triple H, new top heel on the roster, accompanied by his partner and Vince's daughter, Stephanie McMahon. His opponents include the Royal Rumble winner, The Rock, who's now a very popular good guy, taking Austin's mantle as the top babyface in the promotion. He's accompanied by Vince, now surprisingly in the role of a sympathetic good guy, having had his power usurped by his evil daughter and son-in-law, Stephanie and Triple H. Also involved is The Rock's rival, The Big Show, who proves that he should have been the rightful winner of the 2000 Royal Rumble because The Rock's feet actually hit the floor first in the final two. And that's actually true, so fair play Big Show. He's accompanied by his pal Shane McMahon, and the final competitor, the former Mankind, now just being himself, Mick Foley. No alter egos, but a place in the match thanks to the final member of the McMahon puzzle, Vince's wife, Linda. So, 4 competitors, each backed by a McMahon, but how does the match shake out? Well, The Rock eliminates Big Show and Triple H eliminates Foley, really giving us the main event we arguably should have just had all along in the first place. But then things reach unprecedented territory. Vince betrays The Rock, turning heel again, aligning with his daughter, and helping Triple H retain the belt. But this is where things get historic. This means that for the first time in its entire history, at the 16th time of asking, the final match of WrestleMania ends with the heel winning. Crazy that it took so long? Yeah, maybe. A convoluted main event, all things considered? Oh, yes, certainly indeed. WrestleMania 17, or X7, if you're just really edgy. 2001's WrestleMania is often cited as the greatest Mania event of all time, and while its main event match isn't the only reason for that, it's certainly a big one. The show sees one of the biggest face versus face clashes of all time, with The Rock looking to defend not only the title, but also his status as top dog against the previous top dog, a rabid Steve Austin, desperate now to reclaim his throne. Backed by a hype package, also remembered as one of the greatest ever, Austin and Rock do battle in the Rattlesnake's home state of Texas. But as he verbally promises in that hype video, Austin doesn't just want to beat Rock, he needs to beat him, and is willing to do anything in order to achieve this. After a thrilling no DQ contest between two megastars just at the peak of their powers, Austin accepts the help of his arch nemesis Vince McMahon, blasting The Rock with a chair over and over again before taking the mother of all tainted victories. Now this match is a double-edged sword because despite being a critical success, it also remains a huge failure in terms of business. Austin's heel turn is seen as the beginning of a huge downturn in the company's momentum and the end of the Attitude Era on the whole. WrestleMania 18, or X8. Injury sees Triple H miss the majority of 2001, and with it, the universally loathed Invasion angle, which sees members of the former WCW and ECW rosters banding together and attempting to take down the WWF, which is a storyline that sounds very promising on paper, but in reality, it's really not very good, and it's probably quite fortunate that Triple H missed out in the end. Shortly after the end of the storyline, both the WWF and WCW world titles are unified by Chris Jericho, who quite shockingly beats both The Rock and Steve Austin in a single night to win a mini tournament for all the gold. Jericho is an obnoxious upstart, backed by Stephanie McMahon, but his plans for dominance are foiled by the return of Steph's ex. Triple H makes his return from injury and wins the 2002 Royal Rumble. And if you're Jericho, this is bad news because Triple H is also very, very muscular now. Very much, more than even before. The feud isn't the best though, and it's kind of seen as more about Triple H versus Stephanie than the actual undisputed champion of the world having much relevance at all. Anyway, the odds are stacked against Triple H in the main event of WrestleMania. Stephanie keeps interfering, Triple H's leg is very sore, of course, having just come back from injury, Jericho keeps cheating, and also Jericho's finisher is a leg-based submission. Uh-oh. Thankfully for the game, he's actually just such a man and overcomes all of that to win the match. Isn't he just such a natural good guy and very easy to cheer for? Yeah, man. We love Triple H. We always have. Anyway, this match is kind of more remembered because it took the main event slot over The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, one of the biggest dream matches in the entire history of the industry. No, I still don't know why. WrestleMania 19. Now, it can be easy to lose sight of this, given all the twists and turns and swerves and shenanigans, but WrestleMania is also about wrestling sometimes. Well, 2003 sees a timely reminder of that, as Olympic gold medalist turned pro wrestling prodigy Kurt Angle defends the title against the next big thing, Brock Lesnar, a freakish collegiate All-American and possible actual monster man. In the summer of 2002, Lesnar becomes the youngest WWE champion ever, demolishing The Rock at SummerSlam, but he then sees his momentum stalled by his treacherous manager Paul Heyman, who betrays Lesnar and costs him the title against the Big Show. Now, in retaliation, Brock, now a babyface, helps Kurt Angle win the belt from Big Show, but then Kurt turns heel, revealing Heyman as his new agent and now establishing a traditional face-heel dynamic for the main event of Mania. The match itself is all about the action, and it's good action too, but it's mainly remembered for the finishing stretch, which could have been an absolute disaster. With Angle there for the taking, Lesnar gets fancy, attempting a shooting star press from the top rope, a seemingly unthinkable maneuver for somebody his size, although one that he had successfully pulled off during his time as a developmental talent. But he doesn't successfully pull it off at WrestleMania 19. Instead, Brock crashes headfirst into the canvas, only to somehow finish the match, beating Kurt with a final F5 to win back the gold. How? WrestleMania 20. Now, for understandable reasons, the main event of WrestleMania 20 is never mentioned by WWE these days, given that it features Chris Benoit in the role of the ultimate underdog hero ascending to greatness. Unfortunately, it also happens to be a really, really good main event. The story of the match begins with the feud between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, former best pals and stablemates in DX back in the Attitude Era, the latter now firmly re-established on the roster after returning from injury in 2002. Shawn's back. Happy days. But things get more complicated after the 2004 Royal Rumble, which is won from the number one spot by Chris Benoit, who then switches brands from SmackDown over to Raw and intrudes upon the World Heavyweight title picture. The resultant triple threat in Madison Square Garden is an expertly constructed affair, full of swings in momentum and dramatic false finishes. And ultimately, it's Benoit, the underappreciated workhorse, who finally gets his moment, submitting Triple H with the crossface in the middle of the ring. Benoit's post-match celebration with best friend Eddie Guerrero, the two of them very underrated stars, now the two world champions in WWE, it's gone down as one of the most bittersweet images in wrestling history, jubilant in the moment, but very tragic upon reflection. WrestleMania 21. The main event of 2005's WrestleMania is really the culmination of the story of Evolution, Triple H's power stable of fellow heels Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista. They really wanted to be the Four Horsemen. In 2004, Orton is the first to be kicked out of the stable, with Triple H jealous at his success, but everybody's really waiting for Batista, the powerhouse of the group, to strike out on his own. This intensifies when Batista wins the 2005 Royal Rumble. Triple H and Flair encourage him to challenge for the WWE title over on SmackDown, but Batista says, "No, I fancy staying on Raw and going after your big gold belt, Triple H." It's a huge, well-received face turn for Batista, and WrestleMania 21 rolls around, and despite trying a few dirty tricks to keep a hold of the title, the game just cannot withstand the force of nature that is Batista, who beats his former mentor to become World Heavyweight Champion. WrestleMania 22. Have you heard of a man named John Cena? Because he is now the biggest star in the company and about to main event his first WrestleMania. So after winning the first of his eventual 17 world titles on the undercard of WrestleMania 21, Cena spends the next year establishing himself as the biggest name around, or benefiting from a monumental and monotonous push from WWE, depending on who you ask. Yes, what I'm saying is it becomes very quickly apparent that Cena is possibly the most polarizing top star ever, but this doesn't stop him from rolling into Mania 22 as the top babyface in the company. His opponent is Triple H, and the storyline is quite a straightforward one, with the game winning a tournament to earn a shot at the title. The match itself is also quite straightforward, but has a big fight feel and really ramps up the drama down the stretch, with Cena surviving a sledgehammer shot to rally back and submit Triple H with the STFU. The victory is his, but the unanimous support of the fans certainly isn't. WrestleMania 23. For the second year in a row, Cena defends the WWE title in the main event against a member of D-Generation X, this time Triple H's old running buddy, Shawn Michaels. But the story differs this time though, with Cena and HBK becoming uneasy allies in the build-up to the show, even winning the tag titles on the road to WrestleMania and remaining co-champions during Mania itself. But Michaels doesn't play nice the entire time, however, hitting Cena with sweet chin music on the go-home episode of Raw, lending the match a bit of a nastier edge. The bout itself is a long one, clocking in at almost half an hour, and is generally regarded as better than Cena's bout with Triple H. But although elements of the match differ, the result is very much the same. Cena showing incredible resilience, this time fighting back from a pile driver on the ring steps, and forcing his opponent to tap out again with the STFU. WrestleMania 24. For the first time since WrestleMania 13, The Undertaker is back in the main event. And not only is he trying to take the World Heavyweight title from unscrupulous heel champion Edge, he's also fighting to preserve his undefeated WrestleMania streak. Yes, over the years, Taker's winning run at Mania has gradually been referenced more and more on screen, with Edge outright promising to snap that streak in Orlando, Florida. Despite being older now, Taker is still a formidable wrestler, winning a grueling Elimination Chamber match to earn a title shot, but on the night of Mania itself, it looks like Edge might have his number. The Rated R Superstar counters all of Taker's big signature moves and also benefits from the interference of lackeys Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, but the Deadman overcomes all of this to catch Edge in his new Hell's Gate submission hold, getting the win, getting the title, and keeping the streak alive. Also, shout out to Charles Robinson for sprinting the full length of the stadium's gigantic ramp to counter pinfall attempt in the wake of a ref bump. Well done, Charles. WrestleMania 25. It's 2009 and Randy Orton is a bad man, attacking Vince McMahon, attacking Shane McMahon, attacking Stephanie McMahon, kicking people in the head also, and generally just acting unhinged. A Royal Rumble win with the help of lackeys Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase puts Orton in line for a title match against Triple H at WrestleMania 25, but the game will not take this disrespect lying down. I mean, he literally breaks into Orton's house and beats him up, so yeah. He's not best pleased. The match takes place with a special stipulation meant to play on Triple H's rage. If the game is disqualified, the belt will still change hands that way, giving Orton a perfect opportunity. The match comes around and the pair have quite a long and grueling main event, one which has since been totally overshadowed by the all-timer between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker further down the card. Still, Triple H overcomes adversity, waiting for a ref bump in order to hit Orton with his signature sledgehammer on the way to retaining the title. It's all about the game and how you play it, and also how gritty and manly you are. WrestleMania 26. Remember that HBK Taker match that I just mentioned? Yeah, Undertaker won that one, preserving his streak but driving Shawn Michaels mad in the process. HBK becomes obsessed with proving that he can beat the Deadman on the grandest stage of them all. Shawn's challenge for a rematch is turned down, and he then fails to win the Royal Rumble that would have booked him a match against now World Heavyweight Champion Taker. So Michaels does the next best thing, costing Taker the title at Elimination Chamber, which successfully provokes the wrath of the Deadman, who finally agrees to a rematch at WrestleMania under just one condition. HBK puts his career on the line. This time, the bout fittingly closes the show, despite no title being at stake, and despite coming close on multiple occasions in a match considered to be a very, very good one, maybe not quite as good as the one the year before, but still very, very good, Michaels is unable to get it done. He loses to The Undertaker again, and his glittering wrestling career is over. Until November 2018 in Saudi Arabia, but the less said about that match, the better. WrestleMania 27. 2011's WrestleMania has a very, very odd main event for two major reasons. One, it's not really about a feud between the two men actually involved in the match. I mean, it kind of is. It's cowardly heel champion The Miz defending against the much stronger babyface John Cena, who wins an Elimination Chamber match to book his Mania ticket. But it's actually more about tensions between Cena and the host of WrestleMania 27, The Rock, back from Hollywood and ready to tease a big future matchup. Cena vs Miz isn't a great main event really, but credit has to go to The Miz, who suffers a bad concussion from a bump on the outside, but somehow battles through to finish the match. He and Cena wrestle to a double countout, but The Rock restarts the match with no holds barred. However, this is just a ploy so that Rock can cost Cena the match himself, which he does, allowing Miz to retain the title. And then The Rock beats down The Miz anyway to end the show. Now this all brings us to the second reason WrestleMania 27's main event is an unusual one, because it's really more of a preview for the following year's main event, WrestleMania 28. Once in a lifetime, past versus present, two of the biggest stars in all of wrestling history, The Rock versus John Cena. The main event of Mania 28 is set up a whole year in advance, with Cena and Rock agreeing to do battle on the episode of Raw following Mania 27. The build is very long and also very bad-tempered, although Cena actually teams with The Rock in his first match since 2004. The pair win a tag match at Survivor Series against the team of Miz and R-Truth, but then The Rock hits a rock bottom on Cena after the match to further stoke tensions. At Mania, both men throw everything they have at the other, each kicking out of several big signature moves, but ultimately it's an uncharacteristic bit of carelessness from Cena that proves to be his undoing. In an attempt to perhaps humiliate The Rock, he attempts to steal the people's elbow, only for Big Dwayne to spring to life, nail a final rock bottom, and win the match. WrestleMania 29. Once in a lifetime? That's so old-fashioned. How about twice in a lifetime? Yes, the main event of WrestleMania 29 is a rematch from the one before, Cena vs. Rock 2. This, unfortunately, makes the build quite uninspired and quite predictable, with Cena steamrolling his way to a Rumble victory with no other obvious contenders in the mix. And on the other side of the equation, The Rock beats CM Punk to become WWE Champion, slowing the momentum of a top current star and provoking the ire of internet fans everywhere. The match itself is generally considered to be inferior to the original one, with The Rock tearing his abdominal muscles mid-contest. Yeah, that'll probably impact the quality of your match. The pair blast one another with finisher after finisher, but this time it's Cena who has more firepower and gets his win back. The new champion is crowned, and The Rock congratulates him to end the show on a sporting note. WrestleMania 30. WrestleMania 30, perhaps the most feel-good ending in the event's long history, and yet it was almost so different. The story begins the previous summer with indie legend turned champion of the people Daniel Bryan beating John Cena for the WWE title at SummerSlam 2013, only to be immediately screwed by Triple H, who allows Randy Orton to take the title from him straight away. Orton then embarks on a heel run as poster boy of the Authority, kind of a modern take on The Rock as corporate champion back in the Attitude Era. Now this should really set up a Bryan win at the Royal Rumble, right? Wrong! The Rumble is actually won by Batista, recently returned to the company for the first time since 2010, setting up a WrestleMania main event, Batista vs. Orton, that nobody really wants to see. So instead, WWE call the mother of all audibles, turning Batista heel as well and giving Bryan the chance to force his way into the main event, if only he can beat Triple H in the opening match of WrestleMania. Bryan does so, although he is beaten down after the bell by Triple H, but still, he takes part in what is now a triple threat alongside Orton and Batista. And despite being the underdog in terms of size, strength and freshness, and despite the interference from Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, turns out this Daniel Bryan guy is actually a pretty good wrestler. He bravely wins the match, forcing Batista to tap out to his signature yes lock and sparking scenes of jubilation. This was exactly what the fans wanted, and although WWE almost disregarded it, they booked the right thing in the end. WrestleMania 31. So now we enter the era of Roman Reigns, and if you thought John Cena had a hard time getting all of the fans on side, oh boy. Emerging as the breakout star of the game-changing Shield trio, Roman is very clearly positioned as the next face of WWE. So clearly, in fact, that a large portion of the audience just decide to outright reject him. His 2015 Royal Rumble win so vehemently booed, not even an appearance from The Rock could salvage the reaction. Roman heads into WrestleMania 31 against reigning champion Brock Lesnar, and although the action is quite brutal and quite compelling, nobody is fully happy. This seems like a total lose-lose situation for WWE. Many hate the idea of Roman winning, but Brock's part-time schedule also makes him an unpopular champion. Instead, we get what has since become known as the heist of the century. Money in the Bank cash-ins are nothing new by 2015, but never has one been so masterfully executed on the biggest stage imaginable. Roman's former ally and the man who broke up the Shield, Seth Rollins, joins proceedings unannounced, mid-match, to spark an impromptu triple threat. Seth wins, celebrates on the ramp, and the main event of WrestleMania is saved. For now. WrestleMania 32. WWE may have pivoted to avoid fan backlash at the previous two WrestleManias, but not in 2016. This one is WWE's way or the highway, and it results in a very negatively received main event. Again, the central person here is Roman Reigns, embroiled in a feud with the powers that be, aka Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. This doesn't help put Roman, though, into the fans' good graces. Roman heads into the Royal Rumble as champion, but is forced to put the belt on the line in the match itself and enter at number 1. The deck is stacked impossibly against the champion, and the match is instead won by Triple H, securing his 14th and final world title, and, perhaps frustratingly, it earns him the cheers of the fans as well. Yeah, the fans are just determined not to support Roman here, especially at WrestleMania, where the villainy of Triple H and Stephanie is really ramped up. Steph gives a pre-match promo about how the fans are all scum and how she and Triple H are their oppressors, and then Triple H comes out looking like this, and by contrast, Roman Reigns is supposed to be the total man of the people and everything. He even spears Stephanie during the match itself, but the live crowd have completely made up their mind already, crapping all over Roman's winning moment and giving us one of the most unpopular Mania main events of all time. WrestleMania 33. Yep, still Roman, although this time he's not fighting for a title. He's fighting to be the big dog in the big yard, and he's taking on the biggest of all the yard owners, the Undertaker. The build to this one is very minimalist, with Roman eliminating Taker from the 2017 Royal Rumble, Taker attacking Roman on an episode of Raw in revenge, and then a no DQ match being set up with very little else in the way of a storyline. Unfortunately, especially given the stature of The Undertaker and his close ties with WrestleMania as an event on the whole, the match proves to be something of a letdown. Taker's age is clearly catching up with him by this point. He goes down to Roman after a flurry of chair shots and spears, but the match is not that good. And the post-match scenes seem to act as an unspoken retirement for the dead man, who leaves several items of his gear in the ring behind him. However, he returns to action at the following year's Mania, squashing John Cena, and his career goes on. So even if that was the plan, he didn't end up following through. There's every chance, of course, that maybe he just wasn't happy with the match and wanted to go out on a better note. And we will see Taker's actual retirement match later in this video. WrestleMania 34. Yep, Roman Reigns again, this time in a rematch of WrestleMania 31's main event against Brock Lesnar, this time without the involvement of Seth Rollins. This match marks the first time the relatively short-lived Universal Championship makes an appearance in the main event. It had been won from Goldberg by Lesnar at the previous year's WrestleMania, and then Lesnar defended it sometimes. Yes, it's another tale of the very part-time champion Lesnar taking on the very divisive challenger Roman, who topples the rampaging Braun Strowman at Elimination Chamber to set up this match. The bout itself is another negatively received one for Roman, who survives a boatload of F5s from Lesnar, makes a brave babyface comeback, and then just loses anyway. Yes, with most people predicting a certain Roman victory, WWE pivots and instead keeps the belt on Lesnar, marking yet another unhappy night for Roman on the grandest stage of them all. WrestleMania 35. The first ever women's main event of WrestleMania, and it only took them 35 attempts to pull the trigger. And the catalyst for this breakthrough is, of course, Becky Lynch, who harnesses the crowd's support like no female superstar ever before, leveraging an iconic, defiant reaction to getting her nose broken on a TV segment into an absolute wave of momentum. Of course, WWE complicate things more than necessary, inserting Charlotte Flair into Becky's feud with pioneering MMA star Ronda Rousey, and kind of appearing to take Becky's moment away. In hindsight, to be fair, the initial plan might have always been Ronda versus Charlotte, with Becky's unexpected surge of popularity causing WWE to switch plans. Anyway, Becky wins the 2019 Women's Royal Rumble match despite not being an official entrant, replacing an injured Lana, and after some quite pointless wrangling with the McMahon family, she is inserted into Ronda versus Charlotte, making it a triple threat. Becky's opponents both hold one of the women's world titles heading in, but there was only ever going to be one winner. Becky executes a crucifix pinfall on Ronda, whose shoulders do unfortunately pop off the canvas midway through the 3 count, but this slight mistake doesn't outweigh the jubilation and the historic nature of the moment. Lynch wins the match and the titles, and Becky 2 belts is born. WrestleMania 36 Night 1. With the world in lockdown, WWE plows ahead with WrestleMania, unthinkably hosting it inside an empty performance center. For the first time ever, Mania is also a two-night affair, and the main event of Night 1 also acts as the final chapter of the legendary career of The Undertaker. But as you might recall, Taker's age is preventing him from having sufficiently epic matches to act as a worthy send-off. So what can WWE do? Let me introduce you to the magic of cinema. Or more accurately, cinematic wrestling. The absence of a live crowd allowing WWE to basically produce a mini-movie, which sees Undertaker wrestle his last ever match against AJ Styles, who ramps up the disrespectful antics on the road to WrestleMania. Shot off-site in an abandoned cemetery and warehouse, the so-called Boneyard match sees Taker make his last ride. He thwarts the efforts of Styles and his pals Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson before literally burying AJ to earn his final victory, riding off into the night. It's very cheesy, but hey, it's pro wrestling. WrestleMania 36 Night 2. The second main event of WrestleMania 36 is a more conventional match, although only slightly really. It's very short for a Mania main event, lasting under 5 minutes and features little more than an extended exchange of finishers between dominant WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and Royal Rumble winner Drew McIntyre. This bout is supposed to represent the culmination of a long journey for Drew, who was initially seen as a future star in the company, only for things not to pan out that way, him to be released in 2014 and then fight his way back to the company and up to the top of the card. But unfortunately, his timing is awful. It doesn't feel like this big triumphant moment, with Drew's big title win taking place in front of 0 fans. In fairness, this is wisely used as future motivation for his character, who becomes increasingly bitter and disillusioned, resulting in the heel Drew that we know today, at the time of recording anyway. WrestleMania 37 Night 1. Another women's main event and another historic occasion, as Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair become the first two black women ever to close a night of WrestleMania action. The build is straightforward. Sasha's the arrogant heel champion, she's more experienced, and she knows it as well. Belair is a rising star who has all the physical tools, but she's less of a quote-unquote wrestler than Sasha. Bianca wins the Rumble and chooses to face Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and the pair have a great match, fully fitting of the occasion, with Bianca using her strength and athleticism to counter Sasha's wiliness. The finishing stretch sees Belair absolutely crack Sasha with her hair braid, which Banks had been grabbing several times throughout the match. It's karmic retribution and sets Belair on the way to a very feel-good victory. WrestleMania 37 Night 2. Roman Reigns makes his return to the main event, now a different character, a much colder, more dominant character, rather than the very try-hard babyface he'd been beforehand. Here, he defends the Universal title against two very different opponents. One of them is Edge. 1 year on from his shocking return from retirement, he wins the Royal Rumble from the #1 spot and secures his place in the match. His other opponent is Daniel Bryan, who was also forced to retire at one stage, is also in the mix now, and gets inserted into the match despite reports of his WWE contract winding down. In the end, though, all of these details don't really seem to matter, because Roman is unbeatable now. Having promised to stack and pin both of his opponents, he does just that, covering both of them simultaneously to emphatically win a match that had, until its closing stretch, seen various swings in momentum. But by the end, the Tribal Chief comes out firmly on top. WrestleMania 38 Night 1. Until the actual segment itself, the main event of this show was set to be a promo segment rather than an actual wrestling match. With the show held in Texas, the very antagonistic Kevin Owens sets out on a relentless campaign of mockery against the Lone Star State, including its most famous wrestling son, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Rattlesnake agrees to meet Owens in the ring at the end of Night 1, where Kev reveals his grand plan. This has all been a trick designed to lure Austin out of retirement for one final match. Stone Cold accepts, and the pair embark on a hellacious brawl, which sees Austin perform surprisingly very well, despite decades of ring rust. Owens more than plays his part too, bumping all over the place for the Bionic Redneck, who picks up the inevitable win after a final, glorious Stone Cold Stunner. WrestleMania 38 Night 2. The second night of Mania 38 features, yes, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar again, but this time, people don't hate the idea as much. That's because now, the dynamic has totally flipped, Roman's a heel, still a dominant heel champion, just like the previous year, under the guidance of his so-called wise man, Paul Heyman. Heyman being Lesnar's former manager, of course. The bout also acts as a title unification match, with Roman's Universal title on the line against Lesnar's WWE Championship. It's quite short for a WrestleMania main event again, far more of a Lesnar-style match than a Roman one in that regard, with both wrestlers trading and surviving various signature moves in relatively quick succession. Ultimately, with help along the way from Heyman and a healthy amount of rule breaking to boot, Roman is able to scoop the win, escaping an F5 and hitting a final spear to finally get a win over Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 39, Night 1. Both main events of WrestleMania 39 are intertwined, acting as separate but linked parts of the overall Bloodline saga. The Bloodline in question is the name of Roman Reigns' heel stable, which includes Heyman, Roman's cousins, the Usos and Solo Sikoa, and until the road to WrestleMania, it also included honorary member Sami Zayn. Over the course of the previous year, Sami's comedic, heelish antics in the group made him incredibly popular with the crowd, which prompted a breakup angle and a babyface turn at the Royal Rumble. Sami then gets a title shot against Roman in his hometown of Montreal at Elimination Chamber, but he loses the match before teaming with his eternal frenemy Kevin Owens for the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. The pair take on Sami's former stablemates, the Usos, for the tag team titles, the first tag match to main event WrestleMania since Mania 1, way back in 1985. Sami and Kevin have a very long history together and came up through the independent scene as friends, as tag partners, as rivals, and after a long, epic battle against Jimmy and Jey Uso here, their victory is a particularly emotional and heartwarming one. WrestleMania 39, Night 2. Now on to the tribal chief himself, Roman Reigns, defending his title against Cody Rhodes in what is billed as Cody's effort to finally finish the story. And Cody's story is indeed a complicated one. The son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes, seemingly earmarked for success only to then stall in WWE, voluntarily leave the company in the mid-2010s and embark upon a groundbreaking, globe-trotting run in many different promotions. After helping to set up AEW, the biggest rival promotion to WWE in 2 decades, Cody finally makes his return in 2022, vowing to win the belt his father never could, the WWE title. Cody wins the 2023 Rumble to set up this match, and after interference from Bloodline member Solo Sikoa, he unthinkably loses in what was supposed to be his crowning moment. It's a legitimately shocking booking decision, perhaps the biggest gut punch in Mania main event history. WrestleMania 40, Night 1. Cody wins a second consecutive Rumble, and surely this time he'll beat Roman for the belt, right? Except The Rock's back, and he really wants to face Roman instead, so he kind of steps all over Cody's plans while attempting to stay a babyface himself. And the fans are having absolutely none of this. An explosive press conference sees tensions escalate, and The Rock slaps Cody, turning heel and siding with Roman, while Cody, meanwhile, is backed by Seth Rollins, and the 4 stars make up a tag match for the main event of Night 1, with Cody then getting his title shot after all on Night 2. The Rock fully embraces his new heel turn, becoming the final boss, and he beats Cody down in the rain on an episode of Raw in the build-up to the show. It's all very dramatic and very menacing. And the tag match at the end of Night 1 goes long, as in almost 45 minutes long, and ultimately, the bad guys win. Roman has Cody beat in the middle of the ring, but he tags in The Rock to hit a rock bottom and pin the American Nightmare. Boo. WrestleMania 40, Night 2. The heels winning on Night 1 means that Roman vs Cody is now fought under Bloodline rules, which basically means a no DQ match. And this seems to favour Roman at first, of course. It allows the other Bloodline members and The Rock to interfere in the match. But this also brings out an army of Cody's babyface allies as well. Not just Seth Rollins, but surprise appearances from John Cena and The Undertaker to nullify the bad guys and to delight the crowd. Ultimately, as it should, it all comes down to the 2 men actually in the match. And finally, Cody is able to get the win, ending Roman's title reign, becoming WWE Champion at long last, and finishing his story. WrestleMania 41, Night 1. There's no title on the line in this main event, a triple threat between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and CM Punk, but there are a few key stories central to the drama anyway. Roman hates Seth, going all the way back to Seth's betrayal of the Shield over a decade earlier, while Seth hates CM Punk for leaving WWE over a decade earlier too. Punk, meanwhile, is just happy to be main eventing WrestleMania, a long-term dream of his that he was never able to achieve in his original run with the company. But another key story here is, of course, the story of who's Paul Heyman's best friend? Heyman is Roman's manager, of course, his wise man, but he owes old friend CM Punk a favour, which Punk cashes in the form of Paul being in his corner for the main event of WrestleMania, which is a serious mental advantage over Roman. Ultimately, though, this costs not just Roman, but Punk as well, as Heyman betrays both of his friends to side instead with Seth Rollins. Seth wins the match, he and Heyman turn heel and claim to represent the true future vision of WWE. WrestleMania 41 Night 2. Finally, we have another one of those dream matches, like Cena versus The Rock, except this time it's Cena in the role of the old-timer taking on man of the moment, Cody Rhodes. But by far, the biggest thing setting this match apart is that after so many years of being WWE's ultimate good guy, Cena has finally, unthinkably, turned heel. And his reason appears to be desperation. After announcing 2025 as his retirement year, Cena fails to win the Royal Rumble, which would have been his ticket to WrestleMania and a chance to win a record-breaking 17th world title. Cena does instead manage to win the Elimination Chamber, but shockingly turns heel after the match, siding with The Rock and beating down Cody. And Travis Scott's there as well, and he's friends with the heels too? I still don't know. Now surely this means that The Rock will once again be involving himself in the main event of WrestleMania, right? Actually, no. The Rock disappears from the storyline completely, leaving Travis Scott to interfere in the Mania main event alone, which is a widely derided decision, as you can imagine. Thankfully, Travis doesn't cost Cody the match, but instead, Cody kind of costs Cody. His inability to be ruthless allows Cena to cheat his way to victory, securing that 17th title and putting a cap on one of the most hated WrestleMania main events of all time. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack the Jobber. Check out my Patreon if you want. Like, share, and subscribe to the video. All that good stuff. And that has been every single WrestleMania main event explained. Have a good Mania, everybody. And I'll see you very soon.